So I'm just going to give that 1 second. Okay, great. So again, as I mentioned before, the theme of tonight is unlearning scarcity and cultivating solidarity. So we're going to kick off with 5 different Asian American storytellers who are all unraveling their own interpretations, interactions with scarcity. To give some more context, I want to talk about scarcity and examine it further. So some of you may be familiar with this quote from Stephen Covey. He's the writer of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where he describes scarcity as people who see the mentality as those who see life as having only so much, as though there were only one pie out there. And if someone were to get a big piece of the pie, it would mean less for everyone else. So while it's totally natural for all of us to experience scarcity at some level, the purpose of our toolkit and the discussions tonight, and for which the event is named, is to explain that the way marginalized identities interact with scarcity is not based on just personal or group competition alone. Scarcity has been intentionally weaponized by those in power to continually justify the unequal distribution of resources across history. The most obvious example of this has been constructing the idea of race and using that to justify the exclusion and exploitation of certain groups of people. So under the term of Asian American, which we acknowledge includes so many different types of intersectional identities, our history of scarcity in this country has taken on countless forms, from the settler colonialism in the Pacific to excluding Asian people from citizenship until the 1960s, to the spike of Islamophobia after 9/11. Our central argument is that scarcity as it relates to people of color is not some individual failing, but an ongoing socialization that we as marginalized identities are not enough, and as a group can never acquire enough to access the full spectrum of opportunities available to the dominant group. Particularly for Asian Americans, this is also complicated by the model minority myth, which allows white America to not only diminish the need for Asian American focused support by pretending we have overcome racial challenges, but also to weaponize our anxiety about scarcity to incentivize us to fight amongst ourselves, also allow the oppression of other minorities. So tonight's through line of all the storytellers is that the foundational concept of oppression establishing and reinforcing scarcity. So each one of them will be focusing on one particular facet of oppression, using Iris Young's 5 faces of oppression model in order to examine scarcity further. Those 5 faces are exploitation, marginalization, powerlessness, cultural imperialism, and violence. Each of these faces results in unique yet overlapping manifestations, which I think everyone will notice as the night goes on. So without further ado, I present to all of you Iliana Inocencio, an actor and writer based in New York City, to talk about marginalization.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Awesome, thank you. Cool. Yeah, so I'm gonna be talking about marginalization. I wanna go way back. When I was about 8 years old, my permanent rotation of things I watched was Saved by the Bell, reruns of the 1960s Batman, and most importantly, The Wizard of Oz. I wanted to be Judy Garland. I would play our Wizard of Oz VHS tape over and over and sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow while mimicking Judy's exact movements, from like camera eyeline to the way she romantically strolled around piles of hay. And at one point in the song, she drapes her arms over like this big old-timey tractor wheel. And one day my dad brought home this kitchen chair that had a similar shape to the wheel, and I was so excited because it fully completed my performance. And I used that chair to copy, obviously, the exact arm draping. And Judy was absolutely perfect in my eyes. And she was really probably the first reason I wanted to become an actor. So fast forward a little bit, I guess you could say my first audition was around the same time at summer camp. That day, my friends and I decided we were going to be doing a reimagined, highly improvised episode of Saved by the Bell, one of my favorite shows. And I was a super shy kid and normally went with the flow, but that day I was feeling super bold. I asked if I could play Kelly Kapowski. And I don't know if you guys remember, but Kelly wore these white kids. And that day I just so happened to be wearing my kids from Payless. They were knockoffs. Regardless, I thought I was a shoo-in. No pun intended, but if you know me, super pun intended. But the queen bee of our friend circle immediately said, "You have to be Lisa." I said, "But I'm wearing kids." And she retorted, "But yeah, your skin." So I could feel my face get red. I immediately regretted speaking up. I never thought about my skin color until this point. I mean, I was like only 8 years old. But all of a sudden, I hated it. I hated my skin color. I hated that it was summer and that meant that my skin was browner than usual. And I hated that my skin color was so obvious and apparent to everyone else but me. And I looked around at my friends and they all had light skin, brown hair, blue eyes, blonde hair, hazel eyes. And of course I had to play Lisa. I did not look like Kelly. And I did not look like my other idol, Burt Ward, who played Robin in Batman. And I absolutely did not look like my dream icon, Judy Garland. And it was around this same time that I stopped watching the Wizard of Oz tape and started to sing quietly to myself. I would secretly sing in my parents' minivan so no one could see how much I loved performing. And prior to this incident, I totally sang loudly, but at this point I felt ashamed to love theater. Like, who was I to think that I could be on TV, that I could be a Kelly or a Judy? There wasn't space for me. So I tucked that actor dream away and told myself what every Asian kid, I'm sure, told themselves at one point: I want to be a lawyer. A few years later, my mom was watching a staged concert on PBS, and I was disinterested. I'd already checked out from theater. An old white man named Jean Valjean sang about stealing a loaf of bread, and I played my brick game, which was like a knockoff Tetris game. But halfway through the concert, I looked at the TV and my eyes landed on a girl singing. The camera zoomed in on her, she had soot all over her face, but beneath all that soot, she had brown eyes, black hair, and brown skin. And she kind of looked like me. And yes, you all are putting it in the comments. She was singing her face off because it was none other than Lea Salonga, the original singing voice of Mulan. All of a sudden, my theater dream came rushing back to me. Soon I was mimicking her movements, her singing, just like I did with Judy Garland. Only this time she looked like me and I looked like her. And seeing her just made me believe that me and my brown skin could be an actor. The dream was revived. Okay, so fast way forward to adulthood and actually pursuing theater. And I guess this is the part where it gets difficult. I feel like usually in storytelling, this is where the big conflict happens, the part where I'm like utterly humiliated and demoralized by some overt marginalization. There's one big racist encounter that's so pivotal, so life-changing that I either come out like super defeated or heroic. But to be honest with you all, this section was super hard for me to write because one big thing. And I kind of realized that's what makes marginalization truly nefarious. It's so sneaky, and sometimes you don't even recognize it until months or maybe even years later. So instead, I wanted to share a handful of moments that made me feel some way, and these popped up when I was writing, and I'll just let you decide what they were. So the first thing I remembered was when I did a production of The King and I, and all the ensemble members were Asian, but all the leads were white. When a casting director told me, "Do you breakdance? We only need one Asian performer, and they have to breakdance." When I booked my first tiny TV role with a fellow Asian friend, she was Chinese, and the director needed us to improvise in an Asian language. And even though we didn't speak the same language, I spoke a little Malay and she speaks some Mandarin, their director said, "Don't worry, no one will notice." Yeah. When I got a call back for the role of Pocahontas for an unnamed theme park, and a white peer said, "Congratulations," only to finish it out with, "But you don't look like Pocahontas, because of your eyes." Meanwhile, the same friend played Pocahontas, and she has blue eyes, and even more problematic is that we both aren't Indigenous. So there's that. Yeah, big problems in that memory. So another one was when I was the only Asian actor at a theater, and my standard greeting from a handful of my friends was, "Hey, Asian." When a friend thought she was encouraging me by saying, "You would absolutely get hired at that theater company because they love diversity." when a casting director told me I didn't look Asian enough to be in The King and I, and that my name sounded Hispanic, so I should be in West Side Story, but I didn't look Hispanic either, so when I was the only Asian actor on a predominantly white sketch comedy team and was relegated to the supporting traditionally feminine characters, and everyone else got to play big, bold, in-your-face characters. And finally, when a casting director told a whole classroom of white actors, except for me, that producers are looking for diverse hires now. So those of you who are not diverse will have a hard time finding work till this trend passes. Yeah. All these moments made me feel like that 8-year-old back in summer camp, that feeling again of not being enough for the world beyond my Asian community. And I was once again acutely aware of my skin, so scared to speak up, and instead I internalized it and asked myself over and over, am I a token, a diversity quotient, a supporting actor to the larger non-POC narrative? Did I get cast because of my talent or because of my skin? And honestly, these are still things I ask myself today. Recently, I had a dream job where the punchline was Asian people, and I spoke up, and they just ended up cutting the scene entirely. And these instances in the entire entertainment industry are ongoing. And I don't know what the answer is or how to solve this, but I'm happy to be here. And I know I'm going to keep showing up and keep speaking up and listening and learning, even if it's uncomfortable. And maybe one day, a little brown-skinned girl will look up from her knockoff video game, see me or one of you and someone who looks like her on TV, and be reminded of all the possibilities she contains. That's all.
Okay, so this is where I like really wish we were IRL. So if anyone wants to go off mute and give Iliana a little bit of a cheer, right now is the time to do it.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
So much for sharing.
Oh, thank
So
you
good.
guys.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for your vulnerability. I know, especially on Zoom, sometimes it's hard to do it, but I think everyone felt something listening to your story. And I think we got so excited that we forgot to do a proper intro for you. But for those who couldn't guess based off of Iliana's story, she's clearly a very talented actor and writer. And she's been in so many amazing things that you probably have seen, like Orange is the New Black, The Tonight Show. She recently was on Eliza, I can't pronounce that, Schlesinger? Yeah. She's on a sketch show on Netflix, but she's extremely talented, and she actually is the most proud of being part of an all-Asian musical sketch comedy group called AZN Pop, and we have the immense honor and privilege to have 2 cast members today as our storytellers, so Angel and Iliana. But yeah, we will send you her contact information if you ever want to keep in touch, but that was such a beautiful story. Iliana, thank you again for sharing. So I'm going to share my screen real quick while we go on to introduce the next storyteller. Oh, yeah. Scroll up in the chat, Iliana, and feel the love that was coming to you throughout the entire story. So let me share my screen. Okay. Can you all see it? All right. So we have the lovely Sana next. So Sana is the CEO and founder of Diaspora Co., an equitable and sustainable spice company bringing India's heirloom and single origin spices to U.S. consumers. And fun fact, she launched something today, so we all should give her a round of applause. She launched something today with her team, and she showed up today to share her story. So without any further ado, please welcome Sana to the stage.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. You guys can see me, right? I haven't done speaker view in a while now. Yay, okay, I can see me. Well, that's a tough act to follow after Iliana, but that was beautiful, thank you. So part of my work with Diaspora Co. is this big, bold mission of quote unquote decolonizing the spice trade. And that word is scary and big, and as a result, I find that it makes every day challenging because every day there is something new to decolonize within ourselves and within the business we work in, within the system. So it's not that, you know, we launched a product, we have a supply chain, boom, decolonize. The point of decolonization is that it's everyday work. And scarcity for me has shown up so much in the past few years because I moved here as an immigrant 8 years ago, so I was not aware of racial dynamics. So it's been an 8-year kind of express learning of what race even means. And then on top of that, like how I fit within it, and like how I'm in some ways privileged and marginalized within it. And so a lot of my reactions to scarcity were more emotional than and quicker, I think, than people who've had their whole lives to unpack some of this stuff. But the story that I wanted to share was that, so for those that know about the spice trade has existed for thousands of years, but the folks that really profited off of it were the Dutch, the British, and the Portuguese, aka the colonizers. And the folks that were oppressed by it was, in my case, the subcontinent of India. But India was created by the British. Like, the boundaries of our country were created by the British. So Pakistan and Bangladesh and Nepal are all part of India as it originally was. And so in this work of trying to decolonize the spice trade, I found that I was asserting the nationalist identity of India very frequently. Even on our posters that we give with each order, we say proudly grown in India. I don't currently agree with a lot of what the Indian government does. The Indian government is right-wing Hindu supremacist. And as a Afghani, like Muslim of Afghani descent, like, my people were directly affected by these kind of Islamophobic practices. But anyway, I leaned into it where I was like, okay, well, I'm in India, I live in India, I can't critique India. And we ended up creating a map of India that shows where we source from. And in doing that, I hired another Indian British person who lives in diaspora in London. And she, pulled up a map of India off of the internet. First round, it turned out that she pulled a map that was actually a Kashmiri map that showed Kashmir as a free territory, as it should be, because the Kashmiri people have a right to self-determination, and currently both Pakistan and India are kind of asserting themselves on Kashmiri land. And we immediately got a cease and desist from the Indian government because we were using a kind of a legally illegal or legally incorrect map. So that was step one of realizing that we were asserting, or, well, in that case, we were not buying into the cultural imperialism of India kind of on accident. So then we corrected the map, and in the correction of the map, I remember that the illustrator had kind of made the Himalayas, which is the mountain range between India and Nepal, in like a funny way. And I was like, well, Alicia, like, that doesn't look very pretty. Can you change that? And so instead, she just made it like a cute little row of mountains on the kind of like a crown on top of India. And in doing that, she took the Himalayas out of Nepal. Again, 2 years went by, nobody commented. We got thousands of Instagrams of people being like, oh my God, the map's so cute. But I think the bigger we got, we started getting emails from very, very offended Nepali folks, basically asserting that India already is a bully in terms of the geopolitics of the region, and now taking away the one thing that Nepalis deeply feel connected to and rooted to, was a way of really recreating cultural imperialism and reinforcing these boundaries that were given to us by the colonizers. We don't really have a solution to it. Like, what we have done now is we've redrawn, obviously, the Himalayas to be geographically accurate, and we list all the nations that neighbor India, and actually, call them out. But a lot of what I have been thinking about is, like, how do you do this work of decolonization within colonial boundaries and borders? And I think as somebody that's formerly colonized, that's hard to rewire out of. So that was my take on kind of cultural imperialism and the recreation of that. But the other big thing that I wanted to talk about, and Jenny, I hope I'm good on time. Yes, okay, was around being the token. And once I did move to the US and started this business around spices, I had to market it, and I had to market myself in the bargain. Convince white people that you are, worthy of selling in single origin equitable spices is that you are Indian enough. In reality, my maternal grandmother is South African, colored South African, so we don't know her background. My paternal grandfather is Afghani Muslim, and my paternal grandmother is Pakistani Hindu. So how much I'm Indian is probably like 1/4. Yet in interview upon interview, I assert that I am 100% Indian, like born and raised in America. And I'm actually pitted often against Indian Americans, because I'm told like, oh, but you're the real Indian. You know, those are like the second generation Indians. And initially I think reiterated that, because I wanted to be the real one. I wanted to be the true, authentic one, that they were not. Before realizing, you know, that I was falling into the same trap that we all fall into. And even in kind of media articles and kind of attention that we've gotten, I'm always asked to provide Indian recipes, when in reality my mom doesn't cook, and when she learned to cook while in grad school in Berkeley, so she mostly knows how to make pesto pasta, and I went to high school in Italy, which means that I also really only know how to cook pasta, and it's been very complicated, I guess, to navigate. How do I assert my expertise as a spice sourcer in my work, and assert that like I'm excellent at what I do in sourcing spices, without asserting that I am the most Indian, and really playing into being the token, because ultimately being the token is exhausting, and I don't profit from it. The only people that profit from it is white supremacy. And obviously I learned that from Black women, and I learned that from Osai Endelin, who gave an amazing talk about like what it means to be a token in the industry, because she was made like the Nigerian American token of the food industry for a little while before she was like, you know what, fuck that shit. So anyway, that was my rambly story. Thank you for listening and hyping me in the comments. I'm gonna go back to drinking my wine.
You can totally unmute again and just give Sana some love vocally if you're willing to.
Holy crap, thank you. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
You.
So amazing. All right, I'm going to share my screen again to welcome the next speaker. But wow, I learned so much in, I feel like, I don't know how many minutes that was. We just said 5 to 8, but I feel like I learned a lot. Thank you, Sana, again, for bringing your full self as much as you could today, after such a big day for you. So, all right, moving on to our next speaker. Let's see, let me just stop spotlighting Sana so she can enjoy her wine. All right. Okay, so we have Sarah, who's next. And Sarah is an actress, activist, and adoptee advocate living in Los Angeles. She's also one of the co-authors of Studio ATAO's latest toolkit, the one that we're all going to share with you at the end of today's session, Unlearning, Scarcity, and Cultivating Solidarity. And she will be moderating actually one of the small groups later tonight. So definitely listen to Sarah's story. And as an inspiring permaculturist and baby abolitionist, you can find Sarah listening to rap or a podcast in the garden, dreaming up new worlds with her doggo, Socks. So with that, can everyone please give Sarah Koff a nice warm welcome?
Hi, y'all. Can you hear me? Okay, I can see me. Okay. I'm wondering if people want to just take a breath with me. This has been already sharing so many knowledges. I'm like really loving just hearing from other incredible speakers. So I'm just going to take a quick breath if you want to join me in that. So I'm speaking on powerlessness, and in writing this, I've been trying to remember the first time that I felt powerlessness. And I wanted to pose the question to you guys. Do you remember what it was for you? When I was 7, I started a new school, and transitions have always been really hard for me. Even in college, I would have panic attacks in cars and on airplanes. It was really a charming trait of mine. Anyway, I was starting 2nd grade at a magnet school. You have to test into getting into magnet school. So I was already like well on my way to earning my first model minority gold star. I was so nervous, and I cried all the way there. When we were parked and my dad started walking me to the gate, I just kind of lost it. Screaming, kicking. I was scared. And my dad pulled me outside and said, Sarah, you cannot make a scene. People will think I'm trying to abduct you. For context, my dad is a white man, and my mom is white too. And to be super clear, they are my parents, and I love them a lot, more than my dog, which, if you know me, is saying a lot. But growing up as a transracial adoptee made me an adult really early on. I was 7 and having a tantrum based on post-traumatic stress. Transitions are notoriously hard for adoptees because of the ways in which we come into the world and into our families. In my case, trauma is really baked into my birth. It's pre-verbal. But in the middle of my tantrum, I had to find a way to internalize that my emotions would cause my dad harm. It scared me, and it made me pack down my own fear and his. It made me feel powerless. There's something that happens when your parents and the world negate your feelings and tell you that they aren't real. Someone calls you a chink, an orphan. Chad pulls his eyes to the side, but don't worry, fox-eye trends are really popping off now. COVID-19 makes us all Chinese, and now our faces are synonymous with illness. But if we are brave enough, if we gather enough courage to speak out, then we aren't behaving. We're causing conflict. We're too sensitive. I'm sure they don't mean it. Because everyone deserves the benefit of the doubt except the person on the receiving end of racism and vitriol. As an adoptee, there's an added hurdle to all of these. It's hard to respond when people just call you lucky and tell you to be grateful for being abandoned, that your parents must be saints. It's hard to trust your own feelings when the best day of your parents' life is the worst day of yours. Adoption sits at the intersection of so many larger structural issues. When you really think about it, what creates the conditions for adoption in the first place? And I'm not talking about adoption that is as old as humankind, where a family member steps in to help and villages kind of collectively raise children, right? I'm talking about a multi-billion-dollar global industry that creates sending countries and receiving countries, where human trafficking is incentivized as a result of China's one-child policy. What power imbalance has to exist and be continuously fed in order to remove children from impoverished families and placed in foster care systems that then receive federal funding? What wars and US imperialism destabilize countries following the Cold War to the point where multilateral trade agreements are made and human beings are included? What kind of white saviorism, however well-intentioned, is so hungry for self-comfort that fundraising for an international adoption, which can cost $20,000, and adopting a Black or brown child feels right, instead of redistributing that money to ensure that children can stay with their families? In adoption, we talk about the triad: birth parents, adoptive parents, and adoptees. Most members enter adoption through loss. Loss of a baby, loss of the ability to have a baby. For me and for many other adoptees, the loss is overwhelming. The powers that be, governments, militaries, diplomats, and all of their policy decisions are not just theoretical. They separate families. They remove culture, language. They remove citizenship. They remove ancestors. What was once a birthright is now being sold back to me by a woman named Autumn for $50 a meditation class. Reclaiming my power as a 20-something was cringy at best, and at its worst, it was harmful. My desire to regain control of my life led to all of the trappings of white supremacy culture: perfectionism, patriarchy, binary thinking, powerlessness became hunger for power. I feel like I spent all of my 20s searching for control and grasping at it from people as if it was mine to take, as if it's something that can even be taken to begin with. I was always competing, one-upping people, needing to be right. It came out of my pores. It came out of my romantic relationships, in my friendships, in my unrelenting pursuit of professional success. I felt like if I pad my exterior with perfect grades, the right diploma, accolades at work, if I become the first this, if I become the best that, maybe they won't see that my skin isn't white. Maybe they'll forget. Now I'm reassessing my relationship with power. It's an ongoing challenge. Excavating my experience and sitting in discomfort, both in conversations with my family who is white and friends who are, many of whom are white, but most importantly with myself, has led me down a path of shame, awareness, and a deeper self-knowledge, a deeper self-acceptance. I never had an example of what like full 3-dimensional Asian joy looked like in my home. But by God, I'm gonna make one myself. I keep asking myself, what would the view from here look like if I proudly embody who I am in all of my specificity? Asian, adopted, a woman taking up space, open, engaging, with a zest for life, a queen, a sunbeam. Doing things like this, like being vulnerable in front of a group of strangers on Zoom, because it does make me feel real. It's in alignment with my values. It makes me feel like I'm talking to my ancestors. And it makes me feel like my power is a gift and not a weapon. Thank you.
You know the drill. Unmute yourselves and give her some love if you're feeling it.
Oh my God. Crying. I'm crying.
Yeah, I'm tearing up. That was great.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm like trying to compose myself, but one of the things we say at Slant'd is that it's never too early or it's never too late to cry. So if you have emotions, please sit with them. We welcome them all. Wow, Sarah, thank you so much. I'm going to be yelling sunbeam down the street for the next, for the rest of Q4 is what's going to happen. So thank you so much for giving us so much to think about. And I just wanted to take this time also just to remind everyone that we are going to have breakout sessions after this for people to dig a little bit deeper into some of these topics, dig into a little bit more about solidarity. We're also going to have like a mini open mic at the end for anyone who wants to share a story. So I saw in the chat that so many folks were like, I see myself in your story, Sarah. So we want to hold space for all of you to do that. All right. So I'm going to introduce our next storyteller. Her name is Yana, and she is a founder and chef of Salo Series, but she's an ancestrally taught 1.5er immigrant chef and cookbook author. And Salo Series was started to share the vibrant food culture of the Philippines through traditional pop-up dinners across the US, Canada, Mexico, Colombia, Australia, Europe, and the Philippines. And obviously when COVID says goodbye to our world, we can see Salo Series go into more places. And she is also a 2017 Stone Barns Exchange Fellow and has been featured in major publications like the New York Times, SF Chronicle, National Geographic, and Cherry Bomb. And it's just such a pleasure and honor to have Yana here today to share her story. So with that, please welcome her to the stage.
Hi everybody. I'm definitely processing everything, and wow, I'm very honored to be here. So I wanted to share a letter, which is my way of processing a very traumatic and tumultuous year for me, involving a person I considered a friend, an ally, and kin. Pain comes in so many forms, and so does healing. So thank you for allowing me to share my journey to healing through this. Dear friend, or so I thought you were, you hurt me. I championed your work, invited you to collaborate on my book, even asked you to capture my most special day, my wedding. I made myself vulnerable to you, let you in my home, in my circle of friends. For me, our friendship was beyond a transaction. It was a pledge to support each other, because I believe so strongly that if we don't do that, who will? You broke that pledge when you put your greed and personal gains first, knowing fully it would impact getting a foot in the door for all of us, putting us all one step closer to getting a seat at that coveted table, to be seen, to be represented, to be recognized. You knew how much the offer was for the entire book, yet you denied releasing the copyrights unless your price was met, claiming they can afford it. Unfortunately, it was more than what the book was worth, at least to them. Do you know the story of the little red hen? She planted the seed, watered, harvested, milled, and made bread. Not one of the farm animals helped, even when she asked. But when it was time to eat, everyone wanted a piece of something they never even had a stake in. I feel for that hen. As a person of color, I already know these opportunities are far and few, let alone afforded to a woman of color. But I still wanted to just bite that bullet for the sake of a platform that I know I wouldn't even be able to buy, even if I sold my soul. At the end of the day, it wasn't even about the money. I would have happily given you the lion's share, but that's just unfair. Maybe I was naive for selling myself short. Maybe you were right not to take something less of what we deserved. In your case, what you deserved, regardless of the collateral damage. We lost the book deal. I called you crying when that happened just days before my wedding. It broke my heart. That book was my baby, a physical manifestation of my life's work, hardbound. I couldn't help but feel that I lost a shot, at a chance, at an opportunity that you unilaterally decided was not for me. Now that I look back on it, I didn't even have one to begin with. In this system where people of color have to fight for scraps, our oppressors thrive in keeping us there. The infamous bamboo ceiling, ironically stronger than glass, would mean we need to work harder to get through it. Culture only gets through when gatekeepers allow it, where and when it benefits them. What was once shunned as too foreign, too funky, too much, now lives under their white light as their new discovery. What was once tradition is now a trend and easily discarded like one. I don't know about you, but I've worked so hard, so much to stand out, to claim my voice, to have agency, only to have it all taken away by another like me. How many times have I heard, I can't represent you. I'm already representing another Filipina. I can't publish your book because there's already another Filipino one in our roster. Sorry, we're not interested in your book because we don't see much of a market for Filipino stories. Why shouldn't there be more authors of color? Why do we have to choose between scraps or none at all? Why do we have to settle for the perpetuation of oppression? Why is there a quota for culture? I mean, who am I kidding? The reason I was able to secure a deal was to name drop some white folks I've worked with to get that credibility. I knew by my merits alone that ball wouldn't have started rolling. This is their game. We're not even equipped to play in their field. Yet we try. We step on each other to just vie for a small position of tokenization. For what? Dear friend, my grievances don't stop here. You shared a one-sided story with intention to hurt, called me abusive and exploitative, slandered my name in the community, but that wasn't enough for you. You cost me jobs, my reputation, but most of all, you destroyed everything I've worked so hard for. Was money all that mattered to you? Enough to have me drawn, quartered, and canceled by your angry mob without admitting your part in how the situation played out, enough to put a dollar tag on our friendship. I wish we had the opportunity to sit down and ask each other, what matters most? What is it that drives us to think that there is not enough room for us instead of making a room for us? What is hindering us from playing for us and not just for ourselves? What is that hurt that makes us hurt ourselves and each other? Yes, the system made us choose. It was either you or me. Unfortunately, it was neither. When are we going to realize that we need to prioritize collaboration over competition? When are we going to learn it was never about you versus me, not even us versus them, but us together is a defiant resistance to the centuries-old tactics of oppression designed to keep us down in that barrel? When are we going to learn that lifting each other is the only way up? Dear friend, I do not hate you for what you did, even when the consequences of your actions remain exempt and unchecked. What you did was out of hurt and scarcity that went well beyond our transactional friendship and fermented through generations of systemic oppression and inequity. I see your pain, but I will not transfer it. This ends with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Yana. That was so amazing.
Thank you.
So good. Oh,
I feel both like fired up, but also really sad at the same time. I don't know if anyone's feeling that too. I think you demonstrated so much strength, Yana. I mean, all of you, all the storytellers did, but thank you so much for sharing that very personal letter. Woo! All right. So I feel like we got to do like Sarah's technique of like everyone just take a deep breath together. I mean, I know this is being recorded, but I fucking love these story slams. I'm so glad that we all get to experience this together and just the realness of everyone's stories. So thank you again. Okay. So
I've also been like so enraptured by all the stories. I've been like starting to forget to time. So, you know.
It's okay. We can, I think the stories take center stage and we can shave off some time at the end of the breakouts. It's okay. This is the start of a good dialogue. So we'll hold space for that. But all right, I'll share a quick intro for our last storyteller, Angel. So all right. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the honor and pleasure of having two cast members and two co-founders of AZN Pop here tonight. So Angel worked alongside Iliana to found AZN Pop, the all-Asian comedy group that was based here in New York City. But Angel is a Queens-born and raised actor, comedian, and filmmaker who founded Asian American Film Thing, an all-Asian American film show that celebrates work in progress. And she uses stop-motion animation to explore her childhood in comedic but heartfelt ways when dealing with things like solitude, rejection, and alienation. Her latest work includes an animation called Curtain Call and a BBC short documentary on mental health. Angel's dream is to have a special with her animations, comedy acts, and like Sarah, also with her dog, Mush. And so with that, I will welcome Angel to the stage, and I think she also has some slides to share, so I will pass the screen off to her as well. Where's Angel? I'm like trying to find you in the sea of people.
Oh, I got
there
it.
you are. Great. Are you able to share? Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I'll be in and out of my screen. So
right.
Thank you. So hi everyone. Everyone's story is so great. So hopefully mine will also connect with everyone. I guess just like a check-in with everyone. Growing up with immigrant parents is really hard, right? Just like not raising hand. About growing up with immigrant parents in New York City. Anyone in New York City? Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit harder because New York City is weird. Growing up with the Yaos is, I think, the hardest. Anyone that's my family? Yeah. No, only me? Okay. I'll explain to you why growing up with them is very hard. For example, like you're probably like, oh, I kissed my first boy when I was 5 and my parents thought it was so cute. My parents want me to start dating after I get married. You're like, oh, my parents are going to kick me out of the house after college. My parents want me to live with them until they die or until I die, whichever comes first. You're like, oh, my mom took my allowance away because I didn't do my chores. My mom once smacked me over my head and told me that she would rather give birth to a piece of tassu than to me, because at least the tassu will give her nutrients and I am useless garbage because I didn't do my chores. My parents tell me that they love me every day. My parents also say, I love you every day. I'm just kidding. We all know that Asian parents would never, not in their vocabulary at all. No one says I love you. As you can see, my childhood was kind of hard. But then high school came around, and I'm going to show you what I look like in high school, so you know that it's like even, that's why it was harder. So that's me in high school. Jinkle pants and Baby G Watch and Backstreet Boys. Hopefully you can relate. And then I also saw this a lot in school. Why are eating utensils in these girls' hair? I don't know. Takeout boxes for you can't even fit a chapstick in there. And then a lot of dragons. Just kidding. It's outdated joke, sorry. And then also you see everywhere girls wearing this dress, celebrities wearing this dress, there's more. Oh, wow, everyone's wearing this dress. Oh my God. So that's the original design of the dress. I feel like those dresses is called K-po in that's how I usually know those dresses. And I know that we usually wear them when we celebrate like Lunar New Year, or if it's your wedding day, or if it's the 1700s in the Qing Dynasty. So then that brings me to this kind of not recent, but like pretty recent controversy where, if you could remember, when this, I will say girl because she's young, wore this to high school prom. And I think it was like half people were like outraged, and then the other half was supportive. The other half was like, she's it's just a dress. She's supporting Chinese culture, and the other half is like, that is not good. And the people who were supportive were also someone like this guy. He had like a whole 18-minute YouTube video, and he went all the way to China to ask people about the K-pose. And he was like, people from actual China said it was okay. So why are people like so angry about this? And then it's like, okay, that's cool, but you went to China, which isn't America, and this took place in America, and people who are usually angry are Asian Americans, and that is very different from Asians, because we grew up so different than the people from Asia grew up. And there's a lot of history with that dress and what it symbolizes. When it was kind of popular in fashion during the media, like these are the first kind of media images, it kind of reminds of how sexualized Asian women are when they were first time in the media. And that might be, with war, It might be kind of showing everyone how submissive Asian women should be, and how there's a lot of violence on us, and we don't fight back because we weren't taught to, or that's how we are. And usually, I know for me, I'm always kind of asking myself if I was born shy, and I was born not to have an opinion or even like voice any opinions, or if it was society that made me that way, that I shouldn't voice opinions because no one around me voiced their opinions. And going back, I just don't get why people still now today would wear those dresses as casual fashion. Because, for example, it's kind of like if I wore like this 17th century American outfit as like casual fashion, I think that would look weird, right? And it's like if I have like, like a spork in my hair instead of chopsticks for fashion, or if like I carry a oat milk carton as a purse for fashion, I think that's kind of weird. Also, I'm a little stuck here, so give me a minute. Also, going back to the other dress, all right, it's going to curtain. I did not practice, but okay, here we go. I am wearing so I'm wearing this dress, and I feel like I also feel kind of weird wearing this dress right now. I know this is a celebration, so it's fine. But I feel like, well, first of all, I feel like these dresses are made for skinny bitches, I'm wearing two Spanx, and like, I don't know if you can, but I still look really pregnant. I would never even wear this dress if it was acceptable. But then, like, so it's like, why then, if I feel weird, then why does the girl wearing this dress, why is that normal? Like that, no one's blinking an eye. And I think because, I think we're used to it, unfortunately. And again, if we all wear these dresses, they're going to be like, oh, do you work in a Chinese restaurant or a nail salon or, like a airplane? Or did you go back in time to the 1700s, to the Qing Dynasty? Is that what happened? Or did you see it? It is my wedding dress here. Just wanted to show you. And so, yeah, so that's not, no. So I just remember when my mom made me wear a traditional capo in 3rd grade because it was Chinese New Year. And I really didn't want to, but I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I remember walking to school, and I thought, I just don't want kids to ask me any questions. Like, they're gonna say, why are you wearing it? What's Chinese New Year? You're Chinese? And then I'm like, I have to explain all this, and I don't want to. So I just remember like kind of not being proud of it and going to school, and then I just kind of kept my jacket on the whole day. I didn't take it off because I just didn't want anyone to ask me. And it makes me a little sad looking back, because I know, like, my mom immigrated to America when she was like in her early 20s, when she was like 20-ish. And she, didn't really have any friends. And she just wanted an outlet to connect to her culture, to other people. But she had me doing it. And I didn't realize, because I was just little. And I really wish that I didn't hide it, and that I was able to educate my class about Chinese New Year, and telling them that, I'm Chinese American and that's cool. And, like also, I feel like I looked really cute, and no one was able to see how cute I looked. And, only my parents and now you guys, because good thing I was photographed. But I think I want to end this with telling my parents, "Ngā Aile." Thank you. I can't hear anything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
good. Thank you so
Good.
much.
So many feelings. And thank you so much. I feel like a lot of the folks listening to this story saw themselves again in your story, Angel. So thank you so much for sharing. And you probably win hands down for the fastest costume change I think any of us have ever seen. Like I mentioned in the chat, our storytellers are so talented, and you